It's almost as though,
so here we are.
dare I say, it's almost as though Biden wants Trump to win. I mean, like, I'm not a psychologist, but judging by some of the things he's done, including what we just saw, ladies and gentlemen, garbage. I mean, this tops deplorables. It's almost as though Joe Biden really and truly just wants to hand the whole darn thing to Donald Trump. That's how much he hates Kamala. I mean, he despises this woman, right? And he should. I mean, she's not exactly a day at the beach. And he likes his days at the beach, okay? Kamala Harris has just stolen, in his view, this election away from him. So, of course he wants her going down in flames. My gosh, she's going down, ladies and gentlemen. That's what just happened. Joe Biden has just handed this election to Donald Trump, courtesy of deplorables on steroids. Garbage.
Or Puerto Rico, where I'm in my home state of Delaware. They're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. His demonization of Tina's own.
Okay. I couldn't believe that. I just couldn't believe. So is this the October surprise? I think this is the October surprise. They kept saying there's going to be an October surprise. There's going to be an October surprise. Well, gosh darn it, we got the October surprise, courtesy of Joe Biden. I mean, I'm looking at Polymarket. He topped 67% at Polymarket, the prediction markets today. And it's no wonder why. Anyway, Donald Trump is reacting to all this in a typical sort of hysterical Donald Trump fashion. He had just gotten the news last night, courtesy of Marco Rubio, and here's what he had to say.
Wow. That's terrible. That's what it says. That's what it says. So you have, remember Hillary, she said deplorable, and then she said irredeemable, right? But she said deplorable, that didn't work out. Garbage, I think, is worse, right? But he doesn't know, you have to please forgive him. Please forgive him, for he not knoweth what he said.
It's true. He has no idea what he's saying, right? He's gotten up there. I mean, he had to have known maybe it wasn't the most appropriate thing to do to go on and do this Zoom call right at the same time she's giving her big speech outside the Capitol, right? That didn't go so well either. But anyway, Marco delivered the news. Take a look.
All right. Well, I wasn't going to say anything, but I have breaking news for you, Mr. President. You may not have heard this. Just moments ago, Joe Biden stated that our supporters are garbage. Are garbage. He's talking about the Border Patrol. He's talking about nurses. He's talking about teachers. He's talking about everyday Americans who love their country and want to dream big again and support you, Mr. President. And I hope their campaign is about to apologize for what Joe Biden just said. We are not garbage. We are patriots who love America. And thank you for running, Mr. President.
Look, you know, we could get angry about this. I'm choosing to laugh about it because it's so absolutely stupid of them to do this kind of thing. We could get angry, and we should be angry. In other words, you don't call half the country, you don't call 75 million people because they like Donald Trump garbage. But I don't know. I think we're kind of getting used to it, right? Like, this is what we just keep hearing over and over and over and over again. You're either, I don't know, take your pick, a Nazi, or you're a deplorable, or you're garbage. So I see how the semantics work here. You know, the verbiage or the adjectives that are chosen. Hillary Clinton, of course, went with deplorable. It's like straight out of Les Mis. And then you get Kamala, where she's just going to go right for the jugular because that's who she is, and she says Nazi. And then you've got Joe Biden, Scranton Joe, right? Simple Joe. He's just a simple guy who's going to go straight for garbage. Garbage. You're garbage if you support Donald Trump. Come on.
Or Puerto Rico, where I'm in my home state of Delaware, they're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters.
Woo! Woo! Okay, tell us how you really feel, Joe, how you really, really feel. So he thinks you're garbage. They think you're garbage. Hillary thinks you're deplorable. And, well, Kamala just assumes you must be a Nazi and a racist and everything else. I mean, I can't even believe, I have to say these things. It is so pathetic and disgusting that they even go there, right? It is just so fundamentally wrong. But I'll tell you what, he's climbing and climbing and climbing all the way to the bank, as we like to say, laughing all the way to the bank, climbing all the whatever. Anyway, take a look, Poly Market. This is big. He's now at the highest level, nearly 67%. I mean, yesterday it was 66. Now it's 66.3 at present. Even this morning it had been as high as 67%. Kamala Harris fallen down to 33.7%. And there are people out there that are mad about Poly Market. Oh, why are you citing Poly Market? Poly Market is so thinly traded. But listen, if you think that Kamala is going to win, be my guest all day long. I would take that trade if I thought that she was going to win and I stood to make that much money because almost 70% of the market was with Donald Trump. I'd take that trade all day long. Put your money where your mouth is. Of course, you can't. If you're in the U.S., you can't actually bet on Poly Market or use this prediction market to your advantage, only because it is only allowed for offshore accounts that allow prediction markets. We don't allow prediction markets, at least not this one here in the U.S. Robinhood, I think, just tried to start one, but this is fascinating to check out, and so you can just check it 24/7 because it's open 24/7, and if you are very curious as to where the money is flowing, this is what tells you that. So he's there at nearly 67%, and all the Real Clear Politics polls show that he's up in these swing states, one after another. I mean, he takes Pennsylvania, he takes the whole thing, ladies and gentlemen. Wisconsin. I mean, maybe she gets Michigan. Maybe, because I'm just telling you, if it's razor thin in the polls right now, Kamala, that's not good for you. Because the shy voter for Trump is the real thing. Nobody's shy about coming out for you because, you've basically told everybody they have to. Right? So if they can, they will. If they can, they'll say to the pollster, yep, I'm going to vote for Kamala Harris. But when you start to see that he's leading in Georgia, North Carolina, Ohio, Nevada, Arizona, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, that tells me it could be a really, really big election night. I'm going to be here live on Tuesday night, November 5th, for all the coverage. So make sure you tune in. Make sure that you subscribe, that you hit the bell, everyone, because you want to know exactly when I'm here live. But, this is a big deal. This is our Super Bowl. It comes once every 4 years. So I will be here with you every single step of the way. And we'll see how they react to some of the poll numbers coming in. One of the theories that's been advanced, and Dan Bongino has got a great podcast, has been making this point that if you can, you should vote early, because the hope is that you have enough votes on early in the evening on record as being for Trump and for conservatives, that you can start to call some of these things earlier. It would make it nicer for me too, for yours truly, right? So we're not up till 2 a.m. here, but it would be good to be able to call some of this stuff early, because you just don't know what you should really be anticipating. I'll tell you, the public is not with her. I want to go to where she was speaking last night, just as Joe Biden was saying this. She's outside trying to do this big presidential speech, but it wasn't going so well. You know how we know it's not going so well? You got the sirens going on in the background. You get the jeers from the crowd. And it just felt like chaos. Do we really want the chaos that Kamala Harris is gonna bring? Sirens and all, ladies and gentlemen, watch her.
Look, we know who Donald Trump is. He is the person who stood at this very spot nearly 4 years ago and sent an armed mob to the United States Capitol to overturn the will of the people in a free and fair election. An election that he knew he lost. Americans died as a result of that attack. 140 law enforcement officers were injured because of that attack. And while Donald Trump sat in the White House watching as the violence unfolded on television, he was told by his staff that the mob wanted to kill his own vice president. And Donald Trump responded with 2 words: "So what?" America, that's who Donald Trump is. And that's who is asking you to give him another 4 years.
But don't forget, he's a Nazi too, and he's a racist, and he's deplorable. And anybody who supports him is garbage. Okay, what do you think about the sirens? Was that deliberate? Did somebody actually put the sirens in there to haze her or to help her? I think either way you slice it, it was a loss. It was a loss all around, especially given that her commander-in-chief was out there saying this about half the country.
Or Puerto Rico, where I'm in my home state of Delaware, they're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters.
Yes, okay, there you go. So, Hillary's got nothing on you, right? Hillary Clinton, who went down in history for her use of the word deplorables. This kind of sunk it for her. I think garbage takes it to another level, but let's take a little walk back in time to 2016, shall we?
You can put half of Trump supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables.
Ooh, funny.
Right? The racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic, you name it. But that other basket...
In other words, they're garbage, right? As Joe Biden just said, you're garbage if you support Donald Trump. You're garbage. And he's a racist, and he's a Nazi, and he's sexist, and this, that, and the other. Just listen to Kamala.
The former president of the United States, who praises dictators, who said there were very fine people on both sides in Charlottesville. Let's not forget, took to social media and highlighted language from Nazi Germany. Highlighted language from Nazi Germany. This kind of rhetoric is unsurprising coming from the former president, and it is appalling. And we got to tell him who we are. And once again, it shows our freedoms and our very democracy are at stake.
There we go. So, and I apologize for the audio. I know sometimes these clips are a little bit hard to hear, so thank you for staying with me, and sometimes you have to turn them up a little bit. But I would just say that Kamala Harris lost the election when she started going from this feel-good personality. Not that that ever really worked either, but it was perhaps more effective when she went to this very dark, very angry. And the switch almost happened, I want to say, about 10 days ago, because she realized she wasn't making any headway in the polls. You have the New York Times Siena poll that just came out, and she's consistently doing quite miserably there, in that they are neck and neck. And when you're neck and neck, that's not a good thing, especially as a Democrat, because historically what you've always seen is that the Republicans, especially Donald Trump, is coming up from behind. So she knows she's losing. She knows the internal polling that she has, the super secret internal polling, is not very good. She was actually asked about it the other day, and she said, no. My internal polls, those are my instincts. So she tried to play that off as nothing, and that she has her own instinct on how she's going to do. Well, everybody else's instinct, including that on the campaign trail, is telling her, Kamala, you're actually going to lose this thing. So what does she do? She pivots, and she starts going really, really aggressively after him with the Nazi language, with the racist language, with the sexist language. There's a commercial now out. I was just talking about this on Newsmax actually the other night. They played it for me, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. It's a commercial that suggests a woman is voting for Kamala Harris but not telling her husband, because apparently men are intimidating you into voting for Donald Trump, come on. Like, if you can't tell your spouse who you're voting for, like, I'm sorry. Like, it's just game over. You don't have much of a relationship. Thank you very much. But this is the kind of stuff that they're doing. And so they're trying to divide the sexes this way. Just like they're dividing people on racial grounds. They're dividing people. I'm waiting for the young and the old, right? The old being the baby boomers that have all the money, and the young being everybody that has all this college debt. That'll be coming at some point. They haven't quite gotten there yet, but she's saying all this heinous stuff. And she's backed up by the likes of all these MSNBC contributors that are also saying some really, really heinous stuff about how he's a Nazi, and this was somehow the reenactment of what we saw back in the 1930s there at Madison Square Garden. I mean, this is Mika Brzezinski. Some of you have seen this. For those of you that haven't, just understand what's out there. This is her on The View.
You need to believe him, and these are the final hours. We need you. We need you, and all of you to vote.
Yep. There you go. So, Mika, I think you heard us before you came out. We were talking earlier about yesterday's Trump rally from hell at Madison Square Garden. So what did you make of it?
Well, I think it was everything that you need to know about Donald Trump in one weird white nationalist Nazi-type rally. And, of course, there's historic parallels to where and when this happened. But
yeah,
follow up to your remarks.
She goes in for that, and she's going to talk about the historical parallels, which are just a whole bunch of nonsense. It just so happened that some bad people, some white supremacists had this rally thing back in the 1930s, and it was at Madison Square Garden. So we're going to cancel Madison Square Garden? Like, how are you equating one with the other? And don't you think for 2 seconds that maybe that's kind of a big leap to make? I mean, kind of a big leap in that if you were somebody who lost a loved one during World War II, if you are Jewish, and your population was nearly annihilated during World War II, maybe you might not like that. But you see, this is what they do. There was a great story. Oh, I can't remember where it was, but there was a great story just the other day. Maybe it was in The Hill. Maybe it was Washington Examiner that was talking about how they went after Barry Goldwater in a similar way, and they were calling him a Nazi and a fascist and this, that, and the other. And this is their MO. This is what they do. The former Bush press secretary, Ari Fleischer, was on TV just saying exactly this. And he's like, look, I am Jewish, and I am really offended that they keep going back to this well over and over and over again. It's a pretty horrific time in history. Is it not trivializing it to say what they're saying? Here's Ari.
First, I'll just tell you, this is what the Democrats always do. They called George Bush the same things. They called Joe Biden said Mitt Romney would return African Americans to chains, to slavery.
I remember.
And they called John McCain Hitler. They called Mitt Romney Hitler. Now they called Donald Trump. This is the classic Democratic playbook. And here's my point about this, Harris. There are still Americans alive today, whose lives were actually touched by the Nazis. My family, my mother, her brother, and her parents fled the Nazis in August of 1939. They fled Hungary to escape. They got on what my family thinks is the last ship that crossed the Atlantic Ocean, the last passenger ship, before the Nazis start to sink every ship that crossed the Atlantic Ocean through their U-boats. This is my family's story. We had to flee the Nazis. And for Donald Trump to now be called Hitler, to be called a fascist, to be compared to a Nazi, is the lowest of the lows by Kamala Harris. I don't know to whom she is appealing. This is an American election between two candidates who may not like each other. But for Harris to stoop to the low of saying that Donald Trump is the equivalent of those who caused the Holocaust, who killed millions, not to mention who killed millions of veterans who had to fight the Nazis for freedom to win. She's saying that's who Donald Trump is? She didn't win a single vote in her primary. There was no primary. She was put into power by the Democrats. Donald Trump won a contested primary. He beat other Republicans fair and square in an election. He likely is going to beat Kamala Harris fair and square in an election. They don't like losing, so they call him a Nazi. Donald Trump is actually the essence of democracy, but nobody in American politics should compare anybody to the Nazis. That's who my family had to flee from.
Thank you. Really powerful statement from Ari. And it's what I've been saying over and over and over again. Like, you don't throw that stuff around. You don't use those terms lightly. Why would you ever go there unless you absolutely had to? Because it's trivializing everyone else, everyone who lost their loved ones. It's just wrong. And yet this is what they're doing over and over and over again. Kamala Harris is doing it. Debbie Dingell from Michigan, the representative, went on and tried to warn Muslims. It's like they'll just use it for any group, right? For women. I think Mika was on a Morning Joe saying he's going to kill us. He's going to kill us women. So they'll use it for women. They'll use it for Muslims. They'll use it for blacks. They'll use it. It's just divide and conquer, divide and conquer, divide and conquer. They'll do it for Latinos. This is what's going on, guys, okay? We get it. We get it. This is an act of desperation.
And the Arab American community needs to be reminded and cannot forget. He wants to ban Muslims, he wants to deport Muslims, and he wants to start internment camps. And that's what we are busy talking to every voter. He's telling you what he's going to do. Believe him.
Internment camps?
Yes, he has talked internment camps. You know what, Jake? You may have to visit me in one. I get worried enough when he talks about what he's going to do to his political enemies. But he has talked about them in this with different groups of people.
Well, I've heard him talking about rounding up undocumented migrants.
See, even Jake is like, lady, you're way out over your skis.
And obviously for that, you would need some sort of camp. But what do you mean internment camps for Muslims and Arabs?
He has spoken about that in different audiences. I don't have the exact citation right here, but I'll find it for you. And he's been very clear. And I've said to the community, I'll never forget when he kept his promise that he was going to ban Muslims.
All right. So again, let's go back to what Ari said. When you start throwing around these kind of accusations and this kind of language, you ought to, for the sake of history, for the sake of everyone that died, be able to back it up, like have something. And instead, they're just throwing it out. And then if you don't agree, suddenly you are the problem. You are the garbage. What, are they going to lock you up too?
Or Puerto Rico, where I'm in my home state of Delaware, they're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters, his demonization.
Disgusting. Really, really disgusting. Now, Joe Biden, they may need to take off the campaign trail. They may need to retire him because between this and what he said the other day, I'm beginning to think he's just trying to do her in.
Bizarre. It sounds like I said this 5 years ago, you'd lock me up. We got to lock him up. Politically lock him up.
Politically lock him up. Yeah, that's what I meant, right? That's what I meant. Listen, the voters are over this. We're going to talk about this as we look at some of the new polls, as we see some reaction. I want to get out to some of these swing states and get some reaction for you. But first, a note from one of our great sponsors here on the Trish Regan Show. That would be Balance of Nature, our friends over at Balance of Nature. I take these every day. I need my vitamins. I live in the Northeast. We're having a bit of a heat wave right now, which is great for Halloween, trick-or-treating. But it tends to be very cold, and thus I don't get a lot of sunlight, and thus I don't get a lot of vitamin D, and so I need to take my fruits and veggies. I do, actually. I really do. Like I got the blood work back, and the doctor's like, hey, you need some vitamin D. So this is actually how I get it. They send it to my house. Balance of Nature does, and you can get this too, and you can help the show because we love our sponsors here on the Trish Regan Show, and we want to help them. When you're participating in that marketplace, you're helping them, you're helping yourself, you're helping me as well. So go to balanceofnature.com. You can get 35% off. That's a special deal that I've worked out for listeners of this show. Just use my name, code word Trish. Call them at 1-800-246-8751. Again, it's 1-800-246-8751, or go to balanceofnature.com and get that 35% off and take your fruits and veggies like I do. They have actually lots of different stuff. I just happen to take the fruits and veggies gummies, which, by the way, are great if you are gluten-free as well. I'm not actually, but I have family members that are, so I throw that out there to you all as well. You know, this is a pretty important time, too. Another reason why you need to be taking your fruits and veggies. We're going into the holiday season, which is a good excuse for me to tell you about the Trish Regan shop, trishregan.shop. You can help support the show there as well. If you go to trishregan.shop, and you can pick up some little Christmas goodies along the way. We've got hats, we've got merch. You can celebrate the Trish Regan show and do your part to get the word out there at trishregan.shop. And of course, you see me drinking my water out of this endlessly every single day. I will say this though, voters are actually furious. Voters are really pretty disgusted with everything that we've seen. Biden out there referring to Trump supporters as garbage. I mean, think about that. Garbage, ladies and gentlemen. This is not a good place to be.
I've been a Republican my whole life, and it's a privilege to be a Republican and a conservative, and I stand for conservative values, and I think I can process thoughts and have my own thought pattern, and to be called garbage for those thoughts is not necessarily an uplifting comment.
Were you surprised?
No, not at all. No, not coming from him or his party.
You see, I think you're going to see a lot more of that. I think people are going to be disgusted, maybe not necessarily surprised. After all, it follows on the heels of what Kamala's been saying. It follows what Hillary Clinton said back in 2016. And so it's not necessarily that people are surprised, but they got to be disappointed. In other words, you can't go out there and cancel half the country and just write them off. You just can't do that. And Americans are looking at everything right now. They're assessing everything. They realize we have a border problem. She did very little in that speech to sort of quell any concerns about the border. And they realize we have an economic problem. And all of these things increasingly could lead to more international problems. John Meacham, who's this historian that's like basically in the back pocket of Joe Biden. I mean, I say that because John Meacham was one of the people that Biden brought in to the White House initially because he was wondering how he could really make his mark on history and be like the next FDR. And so Meacham is one of those people that was sort of the consultant trying to help him along. Of course, what Biden didn't quite grasp was you kind of needed the House and the Senate if you were going to do this big sweeping legislation. He couldn't get it done. The one thing he did want to get done was that quote unquote Inflation Reduction Act, which did nothing but quadruple the price of everything because they flooded the market with more dollars and really screwed us up, which is why he's feeling some of the pain he's feeling right now. Anyway, John Meacham was out there basically saying, you've got to vote for Kamala because you know what? Americans just fundamentally, they need to get it right. Here we go.
No, President Kennedy referred to the office as the vital center of action. And one of the questions we always face is what's going to be the action of the person that we put at the center of that arena. And that's not an ideological term. It's the nature of power, even in a democracy, right? We're shaped by this transaction often between the leaders and the led. And we're only as good as we are. But we can be made a little better if you have a president who speaks the way and who's conducted herself in the way the vice president has. I thought the speech last night was fully part of an American vernacular where you can agree or disagree with this tax rate or that tax rate, but you know what you're getting. You're getting someone who will take the oath seriously. Mm-hmm. You're getting someone who actually sees, as she said, she's not perfect.
I'm going to just jump in. Do you really know what you're getting? Do you really know what you're getting? I think that's perhaps part of the problem. You do know what you're getting. You're getting 3.5 years of inflation, and more inflation. In other words, we know what we're getting, and we don't want more of it. She was asked, she was given a little layup question on The View. Hey, Kamala, is there anything perhaps that you wish that you had done differently? To which the logical person would have responded, if they had any bit of authenticity running through their veins, they would have responded, yeah, you know what? I wish I could have done more to control prices. Prices got way out of whack. And that's the one thing I really regret. Or maybe somebody might have said, hey, I wish I did more as borders are to control what was going on. I wish I had been able to use more in the way of executive power to maybe finish putting up that wall that now I seem to want. I mean, she wasn't going to say any of this, though. I will give Trump credit. Occasionally, he really puts it out there. He'll surprise you with the authenticity and what he'll admit to. But nope, she's perfect, right? She's Little Miss Perfect. She can't possibly do anything wrong. She was asked in a recent swing state interview here, do you really understand the economy? What is it that is your plan to fix the economy? Because people are hurting. And ladies and gentlemen, you're not going to believe what she said. I'm sitting there going, I can't believe this. Like, they're giving her layups. They're giving her every opportunity to fix this. I mean, I don't think she's that bright. I don't think she can think on her feet. I think she's memorized a series of talking points, but it's literally a comedy act at this point. Wait till you see it. Here we go.
What's your message to Michigan voters in terms of the economy? We have auto workers who are being laid off and those who fear that they might be laid off. The average person can't afford groceries or their rent. And recent polls in Michigan show that Michigan voters believe that Donald Trump would do a better job with handling the economy and bringing jobs back. What do you say to that?
Well, let's start with this. I come from the middle class, and I'll never forget where I come from. My mother worked very hard. She, by the time I was a teenager, was able to save up for our first home.
Oh my gosh.
And I understand.
Oh my gosh. Every time she's asked a question about the economy, we get, well, I come from a middle class household and my mother worked really hard. And she leaves out the part, of course, that they were living in Canada, in the French speaking part of Canada. That would be Montreal, because the mother was a professor at McGill University. Not exactly middle class, okay? If it is middle class, they were like super elite, well-educated middle class that spoke French. All right, she didn't even grow up in the United States of America. She didn't come here until it was time to go to college. And that's when she got really into all her ethnicity, went to Howard University, and then went on to law school. Not a great law school, ranked 80-something in the country, and didn't even manage to succeed in her first bar exam. She flunked it, okay? So she's a flunky who grew up in Canada. I just said that. Okay, because I'm annoyed about this. I get a little annoyed when it comes to the economy. I cannot believe how irresponsible Kamala Harris and Joe Biden were with our future, our kids' future. And not just our future, our here and now. You look at these numbers here, groceries up 22%, electricity up 31%, rent up 23%. I'm telling you, this is why. This is why this woman is not going to be able to win. Quick reminder to go over to 76 Research, our financial website, where you can get a whole lot of information about financial markets and what stocks we like to invest in. Lots of different content there. Just a quick look at our top financial pick, up 24%, utility up 24%, real estate up 23%. You get the picture. It's important to put yourself and your financial future first. You can do that at 76 Research, just $1. It costs just $1 with code word dollar, $1 a month for the first 2 months. 76research.com. I'll see you there. You know, 76 is a company I started with my dear friend Rob, and we're really proud of all the success there. And I was just showing you some numbers you saw in that little spot of the S&P versus our portfolio, the medium stock in our portfolio, up 10.6% versus the S&P in the exact same time, up barely about 6%. So you do have to be selective when you're out there trying to figure out what to buy and how to save for the future. So I encourage you to go to 76 Research. We're actually out with a new note today for the holders of our 76 report, which you can get for $1, just $1, and you can cancel anytime, right? So no skin off your back. It's $1 for the first 2 months. Use code word dollar, DOLLAR. Go and register at 76report.com or 76research.com. We do have a holding that we're writing about today that we're still encouraging people to be in. It's a specific name. I want you to know about it. So try it. 76report.com or 76research.com and use code word dollar. Or if you want to get all the names, 10 to 15 in each one of those portfolios, I'll tell you what, go and get the Founders Club. So go click on the Founders Club, go to the model portfolios, get them all, because that is the best value. But I turn back right now to the craziness that's going down here. And listen, Americans are looking at inflation. They know that's bad. They're looking at the border and they're saying, gosh, we're seeing 10, 11 million people having come across the border in the time that Kamala Harris was border czar, and they're having a hard time forgiving her for things like the economy or things like the border. I mean, after all, isn't this just common sense? The Trump border, can I say czar? The border czar under Donald Trump, Tom Homan, great guy, by the way. I've had him on this show a bunch and on my previous programs, really just salt of the earth kind of guy. Tom Homan, just stating the obvious to this 60 Minutes CBS reporter. I love this clip. I want to play it again.
We have seen one estimate that says it would cost $88 billion to deport 1 million people a year.
I don't know if that's accurate or not.
Is that what American taxpayers should expect?
What price do you put on national security? Is it worth it?
Is there a way to carry out mass deportation without separating families?
Of course there is. Families can be deported together.
Woo! Woo! You know, not that we want any common sense. I said for a long time, the problem with that border policy, and I remember when they first came out with it, and I was on Fox, and they were all like, you know, occasionally you get these edicts from on up high, and they were like, we have to be really careful with this because it's kids, and you don't want to look like these families are being torn apart, and we have to understand and be sympathetic to all this. To which I always said, listen, there is something in economics that we like to call the law of unintended consequences. And when you look at the law of unintended consequences, what you realize is that you're actually encouraging bad behavior or dangerous behavior, because even though you think you're doing the right thing, even though you think it's the right sort of healthy thing to keep families together, et cetera, by encouraging people to come here, you're actually encouraging them to get into very dangerous situations, potentially sending their kids into very, very dangerous situations. So sometimes it's worth kind of taking that hard line. Sometimes it's worth saying, all right, we're going to be really strict about this. We're going to have a set of requirements that we put in place. We're going to have a bunch of protocols. We're going to have paperwork, and we're going to streamline this. It doesn't need to be really taxing and debilitating. We do need people coming into this country. We do want to encourage the population growth here that we have, but we also do want people, and not everybody needs a PhD, all right? So let's be thoughtful, let's be logical, let's be sensible about all of this, and let's make sure that, and Trump said this beautifully. I remember back when he was campaigning in 2016, he said, let's have a big red carpet for those of whom we want coming into this country, and let's have a wall to symbolize. People would say, the wall's not going to work. People can dig tunnels underneath the walls. If nothing else, guys, it really symbolizes something, that you're not going to come here and live off the gravy chain. That if you want to come here, you better have something in place that is worthwhile for us as Americans. Again, I'm a big believer. Look, I'm a big believer in immigration. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for immigration. None of us would be. Thank you very much. I mean, look, my family didn't come here on the Mayflower, but hey, if they had, that's immigration too, right? So we can all cherish immigration. But we must also cherish that our ancestors came here because they wanted to start a better life. They wanted to work hard. I think the majority of people coming here do want that. But what chance did they stand when they're coming in the wrong way? Why not have a system that helps reward the people that we want here and helps bring them in a sensible way? I mean, are we asking for crazy stuff when we want that? I don't think so. Are we asking for crazy stuff when we just say, listen, we want to make sure that we're secure and that our children are secure and that our dollar is secure, that our U.S. dollar is secure? I mean, it's one of the reasons why you got to invest. You got to invest. You heard me talking about 76 research earlier. I'm telling you, you've got to be thinking, because you know what? Kamala's not going to invest for you. Kamala's just going to keep driving the value of your dollars down. And any which way you slice it, I mean, the unfortunate reality of this is the train has left the station. And even though Donald Trump will try and get a hold of it, and I think Elon Musk will go a long way to trying to curtail some of the unnecessary spending, the reality is this. We have $35 trillion in debt and still counting. And all over the world, you have other countries looking to other vehicles to try and protect their money. So you need to protect yours as well. I'm just a realist. Anyway, there's talk now that Joe Biden is so far gone with this whole garbage thing and the whole lock 'em up thing, even though that's what they really do mean and they say to each other, that he might just have to go. Like, go all together. I want you to hear what this Axios political reporter, a CNN commentator, had to say on set. Take a peek.
Alex, I got to start with you because we were just sitting here yesterday talking about the tensions between the Harris and the Biden camps in terms of what exactly they're looking for from the sitting president in these closing days here. And the reality is, of course, Biden's team trying very hard to clean this up. I think they recognize the damage that has been done. What's been the reaction from Harris's team?
Yeah, well, no one here at this table knows what Joe Biden meant, unless someone here has talked to Joe Biden when he made those comments. And the sad reality is that they were indecipherable because this president is no longer able to coherently and consistently articulate a message. And that's just the sad reality. That is why he's no longer the nominee, because at the debate, we all saw that very clearly. And it's also why Kamala Harris does not want him on the trail. This is a guy that just last week referred to former Representative Gabby Giffords in the past tense. She's very much alive. There's a person that last week said that he wanted to throw Donald Trump in jail and then very quickly tried to backtrack and said he just politically meant to lock him up. And we are in this sad scenario where clearly Joe Biden and the aides around him that want to make him feel better want him to be able to sort of be inserted into this race that see Kamala Harris's potential election as an affirmation of his record, but that Kamala Harris does not want him to be inserted and would prefer that he basically be absent this last week of this election.
Ooh, ouch, right? There's a little bit to unpack there. Do you believe really that the Kamala Harris campaign does not want Joe Biden out there on the trail? It's possible. I also think there's something else going on, which is that Joe Biden has no interest in being out there helping her on the trail, nor does Jill Biden for that matter. Moments ago, in the daily press briefing there at the White House, KJP, rocket scientist of a press person that she is, started to try and do her best to walk back some of these things. Don't forget, there is an effort as we speak right now to try and help out none other than Joe Biden, because it certainly looked bad that he called half the country garbage. And so he's out with a tweet trying to effectively say that's not really what he meant. You had the White House coming out and saying in the transcript that he was talking about supporters, and they were putting an apostrophe over it so that it kind of looked as though they were trying to just talk about none other than the particular comedian that was the problem that launched all of this. By the way, he was just telling a joke. I mean, Biden is actually the president. Just, to point out the obvious. Anyway, you've got KJP, again, moments ago, speaking with reporters. Here she is.
So those comments were made as the vice president was speaking about unity at the Ellipse last night. Did the president speak to the vice president before or after that speech?
Well, I think in a gaggle that the vice president did not too long ago, she confirmed that she had a conversation with the president. The president was very proud of the vice president. She gave a historic speech last night, and he certainly wanted to congratulate her.
So that was after the speech.
That was
and
after
did the
speech.
President make any reference to these remarks or apologize to the vice
What
president?
I can say is I'm not going to get into private discussions here. That's not something that we do from the podium. I'm not going to do that. But the president and the vice president speak regularly. That is not uncommon. She is the vice president. He is the president. So obviously they have direct communications pretty often. And he did have a conversation last night because he was proud of her historic speech, and he wanted to congratulate her. And again, they speak regularly.
Was he really that proud of her? I mean, he didn't even listen to her historic speech. He went on to do this little Zoom call where he called half the country garbage. I don't think this is working out so well.
To the data. I think they're probably paying more attention to the election. Bill?
There you go. Thank you, Dana. In the meantime, I want to take you back to a moment from last night that is going to be something we're going to cover throughout the day, because there will be a reaction to this comment throughout the day, and some of the main candidates are going to have to answer to it, including Kamala Harris and Donald Trump yet again, I would expect. Here we go. Joe Biden talking to a group of Latinos by way of laptop computer.
Or Puerto Rico, where I'm in my home state of Delaware, they're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters, his his demonization of Latinos is unconscionable.
So that whole line about garbage, that all happened around 7:30 East Coast time. 2 hours later, around 9:31 p.m., Biden tried cleaning it up in this tweet on X. Quote, earlier today, I referred to the hateful rhetoric about Puerto Rico spewed by Trump's supporter at his Madison Square Garden rally as garbage, which is the only word I can think of to describe it. His demonization of Latinos is unconscionable. That's all I meant to say. The comments at that rally don't reflect who we are as a nation. End tweet. Tom Bevan, Real Clear Politics. Tom, we brought you on yesterday to talk about something entirely different, but this is front page for the moment. How do you think it plays, and who does what with it, do you think?
Well, it's obviously not great for the Harris campaign, just as, Trump battled a couple of days of bad news cycles. And this couldn't come at a worse time. I mean, it happened while she was speaking, while she was giving her closing argument. This entire thing blew up, which begs the question, what was Joe Biden even doing on a Zoom call at that point in time? And again, it reinforces this notion, and we've seen these comments, Hillary Clinton's deplorables in 2016. Barack Obama clinging to guns, in 2012 or 2008, whenever that was. And it reinforces the idea that Democrats, they've just spent a couple of days calling Trump supporters Nazis for being at this rally, that they're alienating, voters that they're going to need in these swing states here in the final week.
Yeah.
They are. I mean, they're alienating a lot of people. And while some people may say, listen, we kind of anticipated that, expected that from them, there are still those that are in the middle that are getting disgusted and nauseated by the constant barrage of hysteria. And you run the risk of the little boy that cried wolf, because people are like, how can we take this seriously? They just keep regurgitating the exact same thing over and over and over again. And none of it, mind you, none of it is working. I mean, you would not be looking at prediction markets suggesting a nearly 70% of Donald Trump winning this election if it was working. So there's a lot that has to be done. I mean, it reminds me of our, they just try and repeat a lie enough over and over again, like the, good people on both sides, which was frankly just a total lie. This is what they do. I mean, Heritage Foundation, our good friends over at Heritage Foundation, they were victims of a lie. They tried to say that, Trump was coming up with these pillars of for Project 2025, and it was all Donald Trump working with some people in the back room at Heritage, which was a bunch of baloney. I happen to know that because, you know what? I know the guys over at Heritage. And I really like their pillars, and I really like, you can go to 25truth.org, you can go to 25truth.com or 25truth.org today to learn more, because they're talking about really smart things, like energy policy, like getting rid of the deep state so that you can't actually use lawfare, Letitia James, to go after your political opponents. Alvin Bragg, Fannie Willis, Jack Smith, Shifty Shift, dare I say, Adam Schiff out there. I mean, you can't do this. So Heritage Foundation tried to come up with a whole bunch of great ideas, and suddenly, they were painting it as this mysterious backroom. It's not mysterious. Again, go to 25truth.org, go 25truth.com. You can read all about it. And it was Donald Trump and Heritage that they tried to say this was, and they manipulated this story. And for some reason, they were riding this one as far as they could. And Trump's like, wait a second, I didn't have anything to do with it. I mean, I think he liked some of the ideas. I certainly did. But this is what they do, right? They lie, they lie, they lie. Good people on both sides, right? That's one of the lies that even Snoops had to come out, which is not exactly right of center, or even center for that matter, and fact check that one. And this is where we are this late in the game. And Kamala Harris has made a decision that she's going to go as hard as she can against this guy right now. It's pretty disgusting. And she's going to use everything she can to her advantage. And she considers using all the bad stuff, all the things that, what are you supposed to say? It immediately puts you on your heels. If somebody accuses you of being racist, what do you say to that? I mean, that's why it's such an effective line of attack, I guess, until you just keep saying it and saying it. And people are like, where's this going, right? Where is this going? I want to turn to another story, because people say, well, he's really suffering with women and women are going to continue to be a challenge. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what woman could hear Joe Biden and think that that was okay, right? Even if your husband is voting, even if like Kamala's trying to divide the marriage, right? And your husband's voting for Trump and you're not. Biden just called your husband garbage. And I don't think you can get out of this trying to issue an apology like you did, Joe Biden. I don't think it's going to work. You know, it's one thing for a comedian to say it. It's another thing for a president of the United States to call half the country garbage. This guy, and I'll play you the original joke just so you have the context, was trying to make a funny quip about Puerto Rico. Now, he's a comedian. He made some funny quips about Jews. He made some funny quips about, I mean, this is what they do. I mean, I'm not condoning it. Maybe I don't have the best sense of humor, right? But like, you know, maybe I had to be there. I don't think the crowd went wild or laughed really hard. The joke may have fallen flat, but he's a comedian, all right? You're the president, Biden. He's a comedian. Here, let's just play it.
Going on. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah. I think it's called Puerto Rico. Okay. All right. Okay. We're getting there. Again, normally I don't follow the national anthem, everybody. This isn't exactly a perfect comedy setup. There's some people here. All right. Very good. I like it. I have other policies that I think.
So this little comment is what created this entire stir. But what's amazing is that yet again, it backfired. It backfired spectacularly as we look right now in the poly market polls and we see Donald Trump approaching 70%. It looks like he's going to win this thing. So then what do? After they've called most of the country at that point, because if he wins, it'll be like, you know, okay, most of the states went with him. A lot of minorities are going with him. Hispanics are going with him. For goodness sakes, you look at the Hispanic numbers, overwhelmingly you're seeing Hispanics siding with Donald Trump. And yes, minorities siding with Donald Trump, as CNN articulated.
I mean, the bottom line is this. At this particular hour, if you believe the polling, Donald Trump's going to put up the best performance with black voters since Richard Nixon back in 1960. Not 68, since 1960. That's 64 years ago. Among Hispanic voters, Donald Trump's going to put up the best performance for Republicans since 2004 and George W. Bush.
Yeah. So he's going to put up all these numbers. And are they garbage people that are voting for him, Joe? You see, they've got themselves quite in a little bit of a pickle. I'm just amazed. I don't think they're going to be able to clean this up. The fact that they're trying to, that they're aggressively trying to clean it up as hard as they are right now, I actually think does speak volumes about how serious they know this to be. And, you know, they have only to go back and look at what happened with Hillary Clinton and the deplorables and how that took on a life of its own. I mean, these become very viral moments, right? That's the reality of this. And so at this moment in time, they're trying desperately to fix it, but I don't think they're going to be able to. I want to share with you a clip from Bret Baier. Okay, I know you guys don't like him, but let's cut him some slack because he did a really good job, right? He did a really good job on that Kamala Harris interview the other night. So all is forgiven for now. Here's Bret on Fox explaining how big a deal this really is.
Karine Jean-Pierre, just a moment ago, set out on what would probably be looked at as a major mission to clean up the president's remarks last night, where he appeared to call Trump supporters garbage. I'll read the verbatim. Last night, the president said, "The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters." Karine Jean-Pierre took to the microphone in the briefing room and said this out of the gate about that.
He was not calling Trump supporters garbage, which is why he this is why he wanted to make sure that we put out a statement that clarified what he meant and what he was trying to say. And so just want to make that very clear for folks who are watching. And I just want to read that out to folks. So he was regarding to the comedian, and I quote, "I referred to the hateful rhetoric about Puerto Rico spewed by Trump's supporter at his Madison Square Garden rally as garbage, which is the only word I can think of to describe it. His demonization of Latinos is unconscionable. That's all I meant to say. The comments at the rally don't reflect
So
who
this
we
is
are
the tweet.
as a nation. And to your question, your other question that you asked, no, he does not view Trump supporters or anybody who supports Trump as garbage.
So as an attempted clarification, do you think voters or those who are offended by this will buy that?
Listen, this is a major cleanup on aisle 5. They've tried to do it 3 times today, and that shows you how big a deal they think it is. And the Trump side is jumping all over that. You saw the former president reference it at that rally. I'm sure you're going to see it again at another rally. J.D. Vance has talked about it on X and other places. This does fall in the line of deplorables from Hillary Clinton. And that did have an impact, a lot of people think.
It absolutely did. So this is why it is a big cleanup in aisle 5 at this moment in time. But I don't think they're going to be able to stop the hemorrhaging. I think that Joe Biden just told us what he really thinks. Kamala has, in not so many words, said what she really thinks. Hillary just came out and said it, of course, in 2016. So they got a problem. And it's almost as though, not to be a complete conspiracy theorist, but it's almost as though it was meant to be. It's almost as though Joe Biden knows that he can really and truly ruin Kamala for good. I mean, you'd hate to think that he would do that, right? But I wouldn't be surprised, would you? Democrat strategist, very, very high up, once told me, do not underestimate his ability to hold a grudge. He can be one mean SOB, was the direct quote I got. The question is he coherent enough to still be a mean SOB? You know what they sometimes say, as you get older and older, you can get a little bit more angrier and angrier and angrier, and you wonder, is this the anger coming through? Loud and clear, Kamala, you stole it from me, and I'm going to make sure that you don't get elected. I mean, they got to work overtime to keep him away from things right now, because he might just kind of enjoy Kamala going down in flames. I never got why on earth he ever took her under his wing in the first place. I've played you on my shorts feed, and I've played on the show a few times. You know the clip where he gets berated by her for about 5 straight minutes in the 2020 Democrat debate? It was really uncomfortable to watch. And she accuses him of being a racist in that clip. I mean, again, you know, she goes right back to the well, wherever she can, however she can. And people did not react well to that. In fact, when you look at her polls immediately following that Democrat debate in 2020, they plummeted. She was not served well with that line of attack. And yet Joe Biden took her in anyway. She became his VP anyway. And now suddenly she's topping the presidential ticket anyway. Anyway. So maybe this is Joe's way of telling Barack Obama to go F off. Right? F off, you guys. I'm going to help Trump get elected. Is it conscious? Is it subconscious? I don't know. But at this moment in time, and we're 6 days out, I think Donald Trump's going to get elected. And you know what? That's good for the country. It's good for our economy. Hopefully it'll be really good for our border. Hopefully it will bring some more stability and peace to the world. These are the things that we need right now as I look at the market overall. Again, 76 research. Let me see if I can put this up again for you guys, because I cannot say enough about why it is so critical that you take your investing seriously right now. And I created this for you because I wanted you to be able to do this. This is a labor of love. And I just thought if we can get the best research out to the largest group of people, that's a home run. So 76research.com. We have 3 different model portfolios for you there. Go check it out today. Use code word word dollar, because again, we've got a big excerpt on a company that we like a lot, and I want you to be able to partake in this. So 76research.com, you can sign up with code word dollar to get the 76 report for just $1 a month there for the first 2 months. Again, 76research.com. But I really am starting to think, again, as I look at the internals of the market, I sound like the billionaire the other day who came out on Bloomberg and said, look, you have only to look at the internals in the market, and what you see is that this is a market that seems to be favoring Donald Trump. And that's a lot of what's going on right now. Again, as I look at all of these things, I mean, you've got Bitcoin, even I know that Bitcoin above 70,000 still. What does that tell you? I think it tells you that the investing community does believe, and we've got a market that's slightly off, but just really hugging the flat line at this moment, in part because people are waiting on some of these big tech earnings and they're a little bit nervous ahead of that. But I think overall, the direction of the market has been indicating one thing, and that's that they believe Donald Trump is going to win this. You combine that together with some of the poly market stuff, and you've got a scenario where, we could be going right back to the future. Donald Trump winning again. Amazing, amazing, amazing stuff. Again, I'm here for all of it. I encourage you to make sure that you subscribe. I just want to go out and say hi to some of our folks who have been waiting here. This is a live program, so if you are not subscribing, if you're listening to this on replay, listen, we appreciate it, but I would recommend you join us live because we have a very good time. We got so many regulars that I see every single day in this show, and I really would love to have you here on the live edition of the program, because it is a good time, right? And we've been able to build something here. What are we up to? 415,000 now, guys? That's pretty incredible, isn't it? Just incredible when you think of where we started, which was like 10,000, if that. I started this channel because one of my producers, who was whip smart and super young at the time, she was like, you ought to have a YouTube channel. By the way, this producer, she's an executive producer over at Newsmax now, so she's gone on to great stuff. I'm so proud of her. But she was like, you need to have this, and it's got great metrics and great data, and we can watch this. And so she was only there like a couple weeks when she got a much bigger job in Washington, D.C., and she wound up leaving us, and I was disappointed, but of course we're still friends, etc. And I thank her every day for making sure that she put this thing together for me, and that she made sure I owned it, as opposed to, say, Fox owning it, which is a big deal, right? So I was able to kind of take that with me, so to speak. But I still didn't know how to use it until a year ago, maybe a year and change ago. So thank you guys for being here. Don, one of our loyal folks here. I'm going to have to figure out how to get your comments in white because they're fading into the background with my black shirt that I'm wearing, and Don writing there in black. 1,600 likes. Wow, that's pretty good today. 15,000 people right here on the platform. It's good to see you. Thank you for being here, Eric. Thank you for being here, Zax, Joe. Really good. I see a lot of new names here. Luke, thank you so much. Luke Walker saying, it's because of you, Trish. Your talent will prop you to 1 million subs. I'm hoping so, Luke. I'm really, really hoping so. I think we're going to get there. Maybe, give us like 6 more months or so. I'm told these things kind of take off once they're up and running, right? So I'm counting on you to help me do that. I thank you all for being here. Really, this is crazy. I think he's going to win. We'll see. Anything can happen, and I don't want to jinx it, but I think he's going to pull it off. I think Joe Biden is actually helping him here in real time. I thank you for joining. We're going to be back live on the program again tomorrow and every day. See you then.